in line with the national teaching standards. Every teacher who teaches in the private school has to be licensed the same way we have for public school. So the standards that need to be instituted and then adhered to in the private school in line with the standards in the public school is one of the things that need to be done in the next year to prepare the private school system for this particular partnership. I think it is one of the reasons why the government has decided to start this policy, not this year, next year, so that there's 1 year to adequately prepare, intervene to enhance capacity and ensure that there's at least a level of standardization in terms of the quality of teachers, etc., so that we don't end up producing different levels of quality of secondary education. Even though I agree that even under the public system, the quality of secondary education provision, varies. It depends depending on sometimes the category of the school or the state of infrastructure, of the school, etc.
Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Pleasure.
That's Kofi Asare. He's Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, also known as EduWatch. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM.
Ghana's embassy in Washington, D.C. is set to reopen on Thursday, May 29. This comes a day after the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, announced the embassy's closure and recalled its staff after findings of a special audit. The audit uncovered a fraudulent scheme involving abuse of office and financial misconduct at the mission. As part of efforts to reform the embassy's operations, a new team constituting officials from the ministry have been tasked with restoring integrity, streamlining systems, and ensuring improved service delivery. Here are excerpts of a statement released by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on the reopening of the embassy.
Following the recall of home-based staff and the suspension of local staff of the Embassy of Ghana in Washington, D.C., United States of America, a team of seasoned diplomats led by an astute diplomat from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been tasked to run the mission to ensure total system overhaul, restore integrity in the embassy's operations, and complete ongoing structural reforms. It is worth noting that an information technology team has already been deployed to reconfigure the website and payment platforms to do away with all unofficial and unauthorized links associated with the IT system of the embassy. The ministry wishes to inform the general public that the embassy is set to reopen on Thursday, May 29, 2025. The ministry additionally conveys that the unfortunate circumstances which led to the closure of the embassy has been brought to the attention of the Auditor General and the Attorney General of the Republic of Ghana for further action and appropriate sanctions.
You heard excerpts of a statement released by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on the reopening of the embassy by Sheba Araba Benin.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Are you ready to lead like never before?
Ready to master the art of strategy and inspire teams that thrive?
It's the Management Bootcamp 2025.
An exclusive high-impact training for mid to senior pros.
Learn from Ghana's finest industry minds, brought to you by Channel 1 TV and 97.3 Citi FM.
From the trusted voices of excellence, Citi FM and Channel 1 TV comes an elite training experience designed to sharpen your strategy, leadership, and communication.
Make a date for the Management Bootcamp 2025 from Sunday the 22nd of June to Saturday the 28th of June 2025. The venue is the Platinum Bay and Passion Base Hotels.
Call 0242-011-424 to register now.
The Management Bootcamp 2025. Lead forward. The Management Bootcamp 2025 is powered by Channel 1 TV with support from 97.3 Citi FM.
Get the details. Every significant financial transaction, every market movement, and all the policies that affect your business. Citi Business News. Be informed.
Time now for Citi Business News on Eyewitness News. I am Melody Fafa. But to fair, the details of our stories now. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana says global economic pressures, including rising oil prices, currency volatility and geopolitical tensions, could trigger renewed inflationary risk in the months ahead. This was captured in a statement by the committee explaining the rationale behind its unanimous decision to maintain the policy rate at 28%. The committee noted that while inflation has eased in recent months, there is no room for complacency, especially given uncertainties in external markets and their potential to impact import costs, food prices, and exchange rate stability. The publication of the Monetary Policy Committee is part of the bank's strategy to enhance transparency and strengthen monetary policy transmission. Away from that, President John Dramani Mahama says the recent appreciation of the Ghana Citi has helped cut the country's total debt by nearly 150 billion Ghana cedis. This comes as the Citi has rallied strongly in recent weeks against major foreign currencies, particularly the US dollar, bolstered by improved foreign exchange inflows and macroeconomic discipline. Speaking at the ongoing African Development Bank annual meetings in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, he noted that if the Citi's momentum holds, Ghana could reach its medium-term debt sustainability target well ahead of schedule.
One of the push factors for the debt is the strength of the value of the local currency. Our debt continued to multiply because the cedi continued to grow weaker, and so you needed more cedis. Because our public debt is stated in cedis, the weaker the cedi becomes against the foreign currencies, the higher it pushes up your debt. Fortunately, some measures we put in place have recently begun to show results, and the cedi has been strengthening, and so we've reduced our total debt over the last 5 months by almost 150 billion cedis, which is very significant. And so if that trajectory continues, the target of reaching 55 to 58% debt sustainability by 2028 will be reached by the end of this year.
President Mahama also has described the shift in world trade patterns as a critical moment for African nations to deepen trade among themselves. He praised the African Development Bank for its strong commitment to boosting trade infrastructure across the continent.
It sends a signal to Africa that we need to pull ourselves out by our bootstraps, because there's not going to be a free dinner anywhere. And that means that we must, one, mobilize more revenue locally, and with the assistance of the African Development Bank, I think that we're doing quite fine. But domestically, we must mobilize revenue locally. We must add value to our products, and we must get a better share for the natural resource endowment that God has given us. And so I believe that is a signal to all of us to look inward and see how we can trade more amongst ourselves. Happily, we have the protocol on the African Continental Free Trade Area, which the majority of African nations have ratified. And so what it means is that we have the opportunity to be able to trade amongst ourselves. And I'm happy that the African Development Bank and other partners have focused on investing in the trade infrastructure amongst ourselves. It's not enough to just have a protocol on continental free trade.
President Mahama speaking there. Now, exporters in Ghana may soon see a reduction in key trade-related costs as the government announces new measures to ease operational bottlenecks and promote competitiveness. Trade, Agribusiness and Industry Minister Elizabeth Ofosu-Adjare says the government is working to eliminate demurrage charges, costs she describes as unfair. She was speaking at the First Bank and African IES Exporters Forum in Accra, where she also disclosed that efforts are underway to standardize exchange rate applications in export transactions to resolve long-standing concerns over arbitrary FX rates in trade settlement.
We understand your frustration regarding demurrage fees incurred when ports are closed. Very absurd. In collaboration with the Ministry of Transport and the Ghana Port and Harbours Authority, we are reviewing these policies. Exporters should not be penalized for systemic delays beyond their own control. Now to arbitrary exchange rates. Concerns about inconsistent exchange rates used in trade-related transactions are being addressed with the Bank of Ghana and financial institutions. Our goal is to ensure greater transparency, predictability, and fairness to enable better planning and pricing for exporters.
Elizabeth Ofosu-Ejari is the Minister for Trade, Agribusiness and Industry. Meanwhile, Managing Director of First Bank Ghana, Victor Yao Asante, says banks are still crucial in supporting an export-led economy, especially through trade finance and risk mitigation.
So typically these sometimes people let overemphasize credit. Credit is important, probably key, but there are a whole lot of other things that are also crucial, particularly when we work to export. Documentation, for example, is so big. Advisory services is so important. So we just need people to make sure they get advisory services, and then they get also some of the documentation right and all of that. So for example, typically when you are exporting, you need certain documents around it to ensure that you are protected. This includes, let's say, letters of credit and all of that. So banks come in. Sometimes you also need corresponding bank services to get you going. So again, banks come in. So these are all things that you need to do with our exporters. So the idea is to bring people in and train them, or at least give them some knowledge around some things they can do to improve their ability to export profitably.
That was Managing Director of First Bank Ghana, Victor Yao Asante. Now, players in the energy sector are criticizing the committee that first reported over 1,300 ECG containers missing at the port, accusing it as poor due diligence. Energy analyst and executive director of the Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy, Benjamin Nsia, tells Citi Business News the committee failed to engage key stakeholders, leading to what he described as a poor job done.
They limited their scope to only some terminals at the port, or maybe some bonded warehouses at the port where they thought that these containers would have been located. So that is one. The second part is that they failed in doing a proper stakeholder mapping in terms of engaging the various state institutions at the port to get a finality on these particular missing containers. Because when you go to the port, there are various units at the port that if they had contacted them, they would have known the whereabouts of missing containers. And if even they were missing, they would have traced those that these containers were sold to. But because of poor stakeholder mapping, they engage only few institutions at the port, and some of these institutions wouldn't have known the whereabouts of the remaining containers.
That was Benjamin Nsia, Energy Analyst and Executive Director for Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy. And that's all for Citi Business News on Eyewitness News. I am Melody Fafa. But to fair up next is Point Blank.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Oh, jump on now. Go. Google me. Now, what time when you come back, we are not hear the sound of your car? Why you buy new car?
No, I not change my car. It be the same ride. It be the fuel way I change. Way one shouts it. Ever since I started using the all-new Excellium Premium Fuel, fortified with 3-in-1 action. Oh, Joe, now my car they run like electric car. No, it's so.
This is the type of fuel where they want to. Because now engine they cost. Where they want for way if I buy it, it go protect my engine. And with the small way I buy, I go drive, sir.
Absolutely. It's like strapping a turbocharger to your engine and giving it a protector. And what they bust my mind self be the 3-in-1 action, no? Excellium they prevent up to 99% of deposit. It be anti-wear, some be anti-corrosion. Won't pay when I open them.
Hey, so where can I find this magical fuel?
Just head over to any Total Energy service station and your car will thank you.
Hey, then make a finish my gobe fast, then rush go Total Energies. My friend, but why you hand my gobe inside?
I give you info. Make a fill the gobe too small.
Go.
Excellium is designed to protect your car engine, decrease fuel consumption, and lower CO2 emissions. Don't say fuel, say Excellium. Choose Excellium, choose quality.
Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/Citi97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/Citi973, and Instagram at instagram.com/Citi973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
It's time for Point Blank on Eyewitness News. I am Umaru, Sanda. And tonight on Point Blank, we are looking at the 9th Parliament, What it means is that since we returned to constitutional rule in 92, we've elected parliaments 9 times. So this is the 9th one. Led, of course, by Speaker Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagman, who is returning as Speaker. On the majority side, Mahama Yariga leading the force of a 2/3 majority. And on the minority side, Alexander Penyomakin leading the minority, which he calls super minority. So tonight, we ask, how is this parliament going to pan out? What are we, or what should the parliament do so that the citizenry gets the best out of it? How does the country benefit from this current parliament? We had a parliament that was neck and neck, and now we have a parliament that is one huge scale down, one other scale below, up there. My guest tonight understands the workings of parliament. He's the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs, Dr. Rasheed Draman. You're welcome to Point Blank.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. I hope you are well too.
I'm doing well. I was interviewing a member of Parliament today, the Majority Whip, which interview is going to air tonight on Face to Face on TV. And he said, of course, they thought that they were going to win, but he didn't think they were going to make that many numbers. He thought maybe 150, yeah, that was okay, but 180 is huge. And I also said that, honestly, the margin of victory in Parliament was huge. It's almost like they have been given excess more than they really prayed or bargained for. Did you get that sense too, that the majority was too majority?
Well, I knew that, things were not going right. I didn't do any polls, but speaking to, ordinary citizens anytime they see me and they know that I do parliamentary work, I get a sense of, the fact that people were not satisfied with what was going on, even if we already even had scientific data to point to that. But just like the member of parliament that you spoke to indicated, talking to a number of MPs from the NDC side at the time before the election, they knew they were winning, but indeed they didn't know they were getting these numbers. And I guess now, from all the things that are happening, it might look like they are overwhelmed and they are finding it difficult to deal with, the huge majority that has been thrust onto them by the Ghanaian electorate.
Do you think this difficulty stems from President Mahama's promise when he was candidate that he was going to restrict himself to appointing 60 ministers? Because how do you reward your MPs, give them ministerial positions? But now you've said you'd only appoint 60. Now you have 184, which is like 3 times of 60. How do you deal with the excess 120?
Yeah, I think that some of that has plagued the majority side. That is why, for instance, you saw during the first meeting, many times the House struggled to get a quorum, and most of the time the culprits are people from the majority side,
especially new ones.
And there were stories about how most of them were busy trying to get things done for their constituencies, in which case they have to spend time outside of Parliament. And like you rightly said, if you are a minister or you have been appointed a deputy minister, I believe you will not spend a lot of time running around and lobbying. So that 60, I think, contributed. But also, I think Umaru, the reality is that even for those who are appointed ministers in our parliament, I think as soon as you get into that house, reality dawns on you. You get disappointed in terms of, this is not what I expected. Particularly those who leave maybe some of their lucrative positions and take up, the baton to run for office. So
there are MPs who are disappointed.
Oh yes, every day we hear that.
Underwhelmed.
Yes, because so first of all, because of the constitutional architecture that we have, people, really a majority, sometimes go to parliament not because they want to make a career as legislators. They want to use that as a stepping stone. As a kind of an avenue to become ministers of state and so on. When you don't get that, and then you look at the conditions under which members of parliament work. Today is even much better. When we started about 20 years ago, Umaru, most of them did not have offices.
The Job 600 was not ready.
It wasn't ready. It was only under Right Honorable Dua Jahu that the Job 600 got completed.
So this was the time they were at Sakumon, or that was just their residential place?
No, that was just their residential place. In terms of office space to work,
there was none.
There was none. In fact,
so MPs were working from where?
Well, they were working from nowhere, and most of them, stories have been told. I've had World Bank delegations that came to Ghana many, many times, and one of the times that this delegation came, a friend of mine told me a story that he asked an MP, "Where is your office?" And he said, "Come with me." So he started moving away from the chamber block, heading towards the car park. And he said, "But you are moving away from," he said, "just come with me." Then he went and opened the back of his car. His papers and everything was there. He said, "That is my office." So yes, exactly. So that was how they used to operate. Today they all have very comfortable offices. I don't know whether you have been to some of them.
I was there today.
They have, administrative assistants and researchers and so on. But I think for those who are not there to make a career as a legislator, I believe that's not what they are looking for. They are looking for something maybe much bigger and different.
It's interesting. I interviewed Fifi Kweti, his General Secretary of the NDC, and he said the reset should begin with NDC MPs. They should know that, listen, you came to be an MP, not to become a minister. So they should stick to being MPs, those who have not been given ministerial jobs. I spoke to the majority whip today. He also gave me the indication, well, you're supposed to do parliamentary work. If you do not get a position as minister, you're being put on committees and all of those things. He said that they are deliberately putting a lot of their MPs on committees so that at least that would suffice. How do you deal with, because eventually by a year or two we would really see who are the people who are going to benefit. And we do know the perks that come with being in the executive. Should we raise the salaries of legislators to make them happier? Should we give them some jobs to do aside being MPs? Or we should in fact, there's even a view, and I think Fifi Kweti said that to me, that let's decouple executive from legislature. Do you think that that would be the solution, so that when you're coming to parliament, you're very set in your mind that you're not going to get any job aside your parliamentary job?
Yes, indeed, Umaru. I think I appeared before the Constitutional Review Committee, recently, to submit our recommendations from the African Center for Parliamentary Affairs. And one of the first recommendations that we made is this divorce. I'm not even calling it decoupling. I'm calling it a divorce. And I was jokingly saying that this is a divorce that even the Pope, the Catholic Church, would support, because I think it has done our democracy too much harm. And, to add to that is a practice where members of parliament get appointed to boards. Recently, I think even on your platform or some other platform, we're discussing Honorable Azikadongo, Chair of Finance Committee, member of the Bank of Ghana Board, and so on. And people were raising all kinds of issues. And I said, look, he hasn't done anything illegal. There is no law that he has broken. That's a practice that, we have seen parliament after parliament. So until, the law changes, until we decouple, we divorce parliament from the executive and go further to make sure that, we don't create situations of, possible, that can generate possible conflict of interest. If you are a member of parliament, you should stay there and be a member of parliament. And I believe, Umaru, if that is done in this country, first of all, we are going to see two effects. The first effect is that we are going to see a reduction in the mad rush to go to parliament. Then the second I foresee is a situation where you and I, people who don't have very deep pockets, would be people who don't have very deep pockets would be interested in going to parliament, because as it is now, I think you people have done a lot of work on the monetization of our politics, how the influence of money. A lot of research has been done. If you have very sound and excellent brains, that is not what will determine whether you win an election. But if you have very deep pockets, I have recently a friend of mine who returned from abroad. After many years, decided to run for Council of State in this country. He lost to somebody who is, I think a party executive. And this is someone who was a professor and so on and so forth. And so, if you look at it, and when he was narrating, I think his case, what affected him was, first of all, maybe he was not known, and secondly, the influence of money.
He didn't have enough.
He didn't have enough money to go around, and this is even Council of State. So you can imagine a bigger kind of election, like parliament, where you have to deal with, so many people and so on. So I think, for me, I would. I hope the Constitutional Review Committee would take this on.
It's good you mentioned that, because you also previously have talked about absenteeism and representation as some of the issues that should be dealt with in the Constitutional Review Committee.
Yes.
What exactly do you want to do? You want absenteeism cancelled or enforced strictly?
No, I think we want absenteeism enforced strictly.
But it's not really been enforced. We saw Sarah Joasafo and three others almost losing their seats.
Well, Umaru, you say almost. What happened to them? Yeah, so I think that's the challenge that we have. And some of us have said that perhaps it might even be there is a very strong case for perhaps looking at this privileges committee that we have that looks at issues of misconduct or alleged misconduct of members of parliament. That committee, perhaps we have gotten to a point where it should be made up of maybe people who are not members of parliament.
Okay.
Because over the years, it has been clearly proven that
they won't punish their own.
They won't punish their own. Today, the Right Honourable Speaker lamented on the floor of the House. You remember what happened during the vetting of the ministers during the first meeting? People were at each other's throat, throwing blows at each other
and
chairs and breaking properties. Up to now. So I would like you to take your microphone there and make sure that at least we follow this up to the logical conclusion. Then there was a case of the daughter of a Medra. The Right Honourable Speaker made reference to it and said, like, both sides are not, looks like, are not interested in pushing it. In a place like Denmark, in their parliament, I have seen one of the Scandinavian countries, a public accounts committee that is made up of people, members of parliament, as well as non-MPs, because they say this is public money and it's too important to be left in the hands of politicians alone, because they will do politics with it. And I believe we have gotten to a point in our country, because we hear a lot of lamentations, speaker after speaker, and even in the first meeting of this 9th Parliament, despite the huge majorities that the NDC has, several times we've had, the leader of the MPP telling the majority leader, look at your back. Where are your people?
They are not there.
They are not there.
Even though they are supposed to be plenty.
They are supposed to be plenty, and they always fail to get quorum, Umaru, which is supposed to be about 1/3, just about 90 MPs. Several times during
even at the beginning of the parliament.
Indeed.
Not even at the end.
Not even at the end. So you can imagine, I think this is foretelling us
early days
what we should expect.
Science.
And indeed, it is showing to some of us, unless maybe something drastic happens within the majority caucus, it is showing that the MPP minority looks a bit more organized than the NDC majority.
You in January said the NDC majority is a small goat frightening a big lion. You stand by for it?
Yes, I do stand by it. I mean, even if I was labeled at the time, because some people said I am NDC, that I am one of their own and I'm criticizing them. I mean, sometimes
are you?
No, my name betrays me. I mean, when people hear Draman, they even add an I to my name. And recently I got invited, Umaru, to a program. A letter was sent to my office. So my name, I mean, in the addressee column, everything was fine, Rasheed Draman and so on. Then he said, "Dear Dr. Dramani Mahama." I mean, I have that letter with me here on my phone. So, when I made that comment, people said, one of their own is saying that, I mean, they are not strong and they are disorganized. And in fact, I've had people from the majority caucus who disagreed with me. I mean, they said we are settling in and so on. But I think that is the reality. That's what we see.
You are not seeing any change since you made this statement. You are not seeing any improvement.
Well, I mean, we are waiting to see what happens in this current meeting. It just started today. I didn't, watch the entire proceeding. I didn't look at the numbers in the House. I think the coming days will tell us whether the whip of the majority side as well as the leadership is able to mobilize their troops and make sure that at all times, at least they've been handed a comfortable majority. The least we want to see is this whole business of absenteeism, to the extent that they cannot get a quorum to do the work of their own government to reset Ghana. I mean, if you want to reset Ghana, people have to show up and work. I mean, these are the people that we elected. Some of the ministers, we haven't elected them. These are the 276 people that we elected, and they have a duty to this country, at least to show up and work and make sure that, if the president says we are resetting this country, I mean, they mean business, and they set a very good example for all of us.
I said elsewhere today that if the NDC MPs are minded, they could even run a 24-hour economy shift in Parliament, where they can decide to divide themselves into...
Oh, yes, indeed, they can, Umaru. This is a very interesting one, because you need 90 to form a quorum and do business. So, at least...
180.
Yeah, they can do two.
Whether or not the NDC MPP are around, they can run.
Yeah, they can do at least, maybe if not 24 hours, they can do 18 hours.
Now, let's move on. You do know that the public trust in Parliament is not something that is high up there. It's something that we have seen and heard. How can this Parliament ensure increased or improved public trust?
Well, I think, Umaru, the first thing that they can do is to show up and work. I think if you take your cameras every day and people see an empty house, over the years, I think some of these have worked against our Parliament. Whenever issues about their conditions of service come up, in fact, I have been one strong advocate of making sure that the Member of Parliament doesn't use his or her own money or doesn't take a loan to get a car to do the business that he has been elected to do.
You want us to buy the car?
Yes, indeed. I mean, if we are buying cars for district chief executives, for ministers of state and so on, I think the fulcrum of our democracy is Parliament. But whenever this issue comes up, you hear agitations. People say, look, we elect members of Parliament, they don't show up for work. There's always absenteeism and so on. What is the value? I mean, that's a question that I've been asked over and over. And then the other is, some of the kind of run-ins with the law and with their own behavior that we have seen over time. I mean, just look at this last parliament. I mean, the last meeting, we've had instances when Yoko is looking for MPs. I mean, MPs are running, they are trying to get arrested because they have made certain comments and so on. Today, the Right Honourable Speaker had cause to make reference to this in his remarks and said Parliament is not going to protect anybody who goes to break any law, whilst recognizing the immunities that they enjoy and so on. I mean, so that's the second thing. Then the third thing, Umaru, whether we like it or not, there's a perception that there's corruption in Parliament. I mean, I don't have any evidence. But look, I went to a school, a primary school recently, to talk to young children, and I mean, who are thinking about their career when they grow up. What do they want to do? I mean, that's a school in my neighborhood, and a 6-year-old child got up and asked me 2 questions. I mean, one of them said, "Why are they always fighting in Parliament?" That was the first question. Then the second question is, "Why are all members of Parliament corrupt?"
Wow.
These are like 6-year-olds. So I said, look, if the data and the research, Afrobarometer and all the research is showing that this is, the situation, how about these children who are just speaking their mind? And then, Umaru, to add to that, you have published something on your website that I have here. When the question was asked, and that's from Afrobarometer, trust in institutions in Ghana in 2024. Ghana Armed Forces, number 1, trusted. Religious leaders, NGOs, CSOs, Ministry of Health, traditional leaders, President, courts, Electoral Commission, police.
You've still not reached Parliament.
Opposition political parties, new patriotic parties, members of Parliament. So if you take the top 5, the people that we elect to lead us,
they are not trusted.
They are not trusted.
Last question before we go. You've talked about the democracy's fulcrum being Parliament. The fulcrum of Parliament is the Speaker, Bagbin.
Yes.
What is going to be his role in fixing this? You trust that he can?
No, I trust that he can, and he has demonstrated that. You remember during the challenges that came out of the appointments committee when MPs were fighting. I mean, he took swift action, Umaru. He suspended the 4 members of Parliament, unprecedented in our legislative history.
From both sides?
From both sides. And there was a lot of lobbying, there was a lot of, I think, negotiation for that to be reviewed. So I know that I think he is getting to a point where he will not hesitate to crack the whip if he has to, because he knows that he has a role in restoring trust, making sure that, because he himself in speeches that he has made, he said the people we lead don't trust us. So he knows the heavy responsibility that's on him to correct this.
Doc, thank you so much for joining us for dinner without food.
Thank you very much. I will send you a bill.
Please do. Yeah. That's send it to my boss. She's called Vivian Kailoko. You saw her when you're coming up, right?
Yes, I was with her. So I'll go and give her the bill.
Give it to her, please. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Dr. Rasheed Draman is Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. I am Umaru Sanda. I did this show tonight with Fafa Kotife. Production by Kobina Wilson, Beverly London, Sami Wiafi, Manuel Ayama, and Juliana Sayodame. Technical support from Emmanuel Lati. New media support from Emmanuel Owusu. We'll be back tomorrow at 17:30 GMT. Thank you for listening. Have a good night.
Citi News. We speak first. Reach our hotline on 0302 224959 and get interactive on Facebook, Citi 97.3 FM, and on Twitter at Citi 973.
Citi 97.3 Accra.